Tom Barclay here. I was at Tottenham's training ground. I had started to record a post press conference video. It was all working fine until my microphone died on me. So, in true Alan Partridge style, I'm instead doing it at a service station, which is quite fitting for all football reporters. They'll know what I'm talking about. We spend a lot of our lives at these places. Doing it where hopefully the mic will work out on the way back from Spurs. So the big news today is sadly Dominic Solanke. He's injured for Saturday's Everton game. He picked up an ankle knock against Leicester, where one of the Leicester players fell on him. He managed to carry on the game, but unfortunately, in Ange Postecoglou's words, it flared up the next day, and he is now out of this game. It remains to be seen how long he'll be out for. He said it wasn't a serious injury. We'll wait to see if he can maybe make it for the Newcastle game before the international break, or perhaps it will be even out until that international break, which follows that Newcastle game. But it didn't sound like either way that he'd be out longer than that. So a short-term blow for Tottenham's £65 million striker. Obviously not an ideal start for him. I thought he was pretty encouraging overall against Leicester, but obviously didn't get that goal. Had a few chances. It felt like Everton at home was the perfect kind of game for him to get that first goal. And unfortunately for him, he won't be playing. So obviously with him out, that leaves open the possibility of Richarlison starting a game. He has been training for the last 2 weeks. Postecoglou did say that he was fit to start the game. Again, it remains to be seen whether he would start or perhaps whether he would come on. I'm not convinced that he'll be ready for a full 90 minutes, having missed a lot of pre-season as he came back from a calf injury. But, you know, Everton, his former club, where we saw probably the best of him in a Tottenham shirt last season when he scored those 2 goals at Everton in that 2-2 draw. The second goal in particular, I remember being an absolutely beautiful, well-timed volley. Richarlison last week against Leicester was probably the sort of downside of Richarlison and his lack of consistency. That's my car turning on there. When he missed that header right at the end, obviously he was quite undercooked and came on when they were trying to chase a winner. But when he missed that header, obviously that was when Postecoglou on the touchline had his hands on his knees, sort of slumped over for a fair few seconds, kind of reflecting what most Spurs fans were probably thinking at that point, and summing up. Just kind of how Richarlison can be frustrating. Obviously, that particular image was memed up very quickly and will probably be something that fans of all clubs will return to for the rest of the season when it's not going well for their clubs. But Richarlison would be fascinating to see him get an opportunity. Another player who's out for this game is Rodrigo Bentancur. That's not exactly a shock, given that he had that pretty horrific fall at Leicester. Concussion protocols kick in, meaning he's going to miss the game. But Postecoglou said that even without that, they would pretty much... There's no chance he was going to play this game because they take head injuries very seriously and they'll be very conservative in their return to action for Rodrigo Bentancur. So with him out, there's a bit of a question mark over who comes in at number 6. Will it be Archie Gray, who obviously came off the bench and was signed from Leeds in the summer, around 40 minutes? He's only 18, but has already shown in his glimpses in pre-season what a talent he is. Or will it be Yves Bissouma? Bissouma obviously was banned for the first game against Leicester by Tottenham, having filmed himself rather inexplicably inhaling nitrous oxide or laughing gas, which is now illegal in the UK. And Postecoglou, off the back of that club ban, hinted that it might take longer than just that one game for Bissouma to win back the trust of both Postecoglou and the rest of his teammates after this particular indiscretion. Bissouma is apparently available for this game, says Postecoglou, but those bridge building that continues. He did elaborate a bit more on that in the embargo section, which will go out tonight, so I won't speak about it right now, but he was very interesting about Bissouma and how he's been since that particular ban and that sort of road back for Yves Bissouma going forward. So I encourage you to have a read of that when those quotes come out. But yeah, it remains to be seen which one he goes for. You still just can't help thinking of Bissouma. You know, what an own goal he's metaphorically scored here. They just really, particularly now Bentacur's out, this would be the perfect game for him to come in. Maybe he will do, but the way Postecoglou's talking, I would not be surprised if Gray was the one who got the nod. One good bit of news is Pedro Porro. I know there was a bit of worries about him and his fitness because he limped off towards the end of that Leicester game. I remember watching it. He picked up a sort of knock and was hobbling around for a good few minutes. At one point, he even looked over at Postecoglou as if to say, "You're going to take me off?" And Postecoglou sort of told him to carry on. Eventually, he got subbed off, and there were a few sort of worries about him, but he's totally fine, so he'll play. Then on to the rest of the press conference, which was, Ange at his best again. I always find in these pre-game press conferences when he's got a bit more time, that's when he really holds court and really is such a great storyteller. Post-match, just generally with most managers, it's more about the sort of just tell us about the game and the sort of quick news lines off the back of those matches, but particularly when Spurs have had a bad result, whether it be a defeat or a draw when they were hoping to win, like against Leicester. It's more of a sort of means to an end, just getting through it, like that particular one was. But this press conference was good as he often is. He was asked about Cristian Romero, who is in line to make his 100th game for Spurs. And he sort of waxed lyrical really about the Argentine, saying what an outstanding player he is, how he kind of had an impression of what he'd be like before he managed him, but since he's come to, not positive or negative, but since he's come to work with him, he's really understood what a great player he is, but B, what an influence he is on the rest of the dressing room, and how key specifically he is as a winner, particularly in this dressing room full of obviously inexperienced young players, but particularly inexperienced players when it comes to winning things. Obviously, Romero, World Cup winner, is absolutely huge for his dressing room. He was asked about Wilson Odobert for the first time since his move from Burnley. He said he is available for this game. He said that the winger, who also can play through the middle, was identified very early on in the summer. Dominic Solanke was the sort of primary target of all the transfer targets for big money ones for Spurs this summer, even though he wasn't the first one signed. But once that deal for Solanke was over the line, they quickly moved on to Odobert, who was their first choice out wide. So that was quite interesting. He talked about not Calvin Phillips. We talked about Ashley Phillips, his move on loan to Stoke, as you'd expect, really, just saying that he needed more game time, regular game time, particularly at centre back, and hopefully at Stoke he'll get that. But what I found quite interesting was when he was asked about possible options at centre back, and he obviously named Dragazin, he mentioned Ben Davies, but he also said about Archie Gray filling in at centre back, which we saw a bit in pre-season. So that suggests, in a way, that maybe he's happy with his options at centre back. So we'll wait to see if that means that he won't bring anyone else in that position, because he had hinted last season that after the signing of Dragazin he still would like a new centre back, fourth choice, but maybe that's different now that Gray has signed. He suggested that a couple more players could leave. We know this already before the end of the window. I mean, Gio Lo Celso is very much likely to be out the door. Hopefully have some news on him at some point over the next week. Or having said that, I'm about to go on holiday, so probably not. But I would very much expect by the time I get back that he will not be a Spurs player anymore. Manor Solomon as well, very likely to go out on loan, whether it's a loan or even a permanent transfer. It just looks like those players don't really fit into Postecoglou's plans. And then he talked about Everton. This is an interesting game because the fixture list has not been particularly kind to Tottenham at the start of this season. That Leicester result wasn't the best given what's coming up, and suddenly this Everton game at home, given how badly they started the season with that defeat against Brighton, suddenly feels like it has to be 3 points, what with the trip to Newcastle and the North London derby on the horizon. We said that with this start for Spurs this season that so I'm just checking my mic is on after the issues I had earlier. We said at the start of this season that there was a lot of possibility to have a platform for success this season with some good results in what is a tricky start. Obviously, the flip side of that is if they start badly, then these games get harder and harder. So, an Everton team that is really struggling in terms of key defensive players going to this game, as Postecoglou pointed out, with Ashley Young suspended. Sounds like Tarkowski is a major doubt, and Branthwaite definitely won't play through injury. And those two were so key for them last season that this is a massive opportunity for Spurs. He talked about Sean Dyche always making it very, very competitive. And Everton were pretty good, actually, against Spurs last season, both home and away. But you really got to expect Spurs to be winning this kind of match. Just looking at the overall lineup, I think the back four and the goalkeeper picks itself, same as the other day. So obviously Vicario, Porro, Romero, Van der Ven and Udogie. It's very good for Spurs that they've got such a settled back four. Then there's the interesting choice at number 6. My tip would probably be Archie Gray, but it depends on how much of a sort of punishment he wants to give out to Bissouma, or how much he really fancies Gray already. You'd fancy Sarr and Maddison to continue in midfield, even though Bergvall was pushing. And then it's whether he starts with Richarlison or brings him off the bench on his fitness levels. I would imagine it would be Richarlison, Son left, and probably stick with Johnson on the right, but obviously Kulusevski's pushing for a place as well. And if he does move Son into the middle, whether it be in the game or from the off, then Werner's obviously got a shout playing out wide. And obviously there's Odegaard as well. Just finally, I was lucky enough on Thursday to go and interview Pape Matar Sarr at a school very near the stadium. It was an interesting interview. It was done in French. I didn't speak French. I had a translator. It was, for a while I was wondering that if I might have to go back to the time I did try and do speaking broken A-level French to Tunisian players ahead of the England's first game at the 2018 World Cup. Those memories were coming screaming back to me in the lead up to it, but luckily enough it wasn't done. I didn't have to sort of lean on my school level French. And yeah, Sarr was interesting. He was very polite, as you'd imagine, comes across as a very respectful player. He spoke about a lot of different things in quite a brief period of time, from Sadio Mane's influence on him, specifically about his sort of physical side of the game that he's worked on, which I find quite interesting. Really interesting on Idrissa Gueye, who obviously he comes up against at Everton, who he hails in like the highest esteem. For Senegal and as a player and as an influence on him. But from a Tottenham point of view, what the things that I found particularly interesting and that fans probably will is his thoughts on the young players. Obviously he's already a bit of a more of a senior head now, despite being only 21 because of the youngsters coming in, and there was one particular signing out of all the players that have come in so far that he is really, really excited about and holds in really high esteem and thinks he can really go right to the top. So I'd encourage you to read that one on the Sun website or in the paper tomorrow on Saturday to find out who that is. And he also talks about how much he felt that the Postecoglou style of play compared to Conte's was such a better fit for his attributes. So be interesting to read that. These videos that I'm doing, I plan on doing pretty much after most press conferences and games. I am off for a week after this one. Hopefully be back doing them at stadiums and at the press conferences, actually at the training ground, which was the plan today rather than my car. But yeah, until then, let's see how Spurs get on tomorrow against Everton.